Does it work to match people up based on non-positive traits?
So generally speaking, I would say not. So, for example, if we take a negative trait, like let's say anger, somebody who is, gets angry easily, or I would say that's not, you don't want two people who have bad tempers to get married. They're going to be all over each other. We want to stress the positive traits in people. And I do believe that couples need to complement each other, kind of like a piece of the puzzle. And when the two pieces are the same and they face the same way, I think usually that's going to be a struggle. So I would say I do believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu typically puts us together as couples because one lacks something that the other one has. So Hashem feels that perhaps if I'm lacking something that my husband has, we get married so that my husband can focus on the trait that I'm lacking so he can maybe guide me to try to work on my part of my mission in life.
Does it work?
Could that work?
Do you have an example?
Two angry people.
Oh.
Disaster. It sounds like it's going to be a disaster.
There's a story that I read about Victor Miller that somebody came to him and they needed a shidduch, and the guy had a temper problem. And
He had a what problem?
Temper.
And he had a big temper, and he wasn't managing to find a girl. And finally he comes in one day and he says, I just finally found the perfect shidduch for this guy. I found the girl that has an even bigger temper than he does. But guess what? It was a joke. Obviously it's not a shidduch.
I usually, like, if someone's very intense, let's work on, that's something everyone is always afraid of. She's intense, this is what they're very big. I want someone chill. They're very into that. I think two intense people, it's not good. There's going to be, it's too much, but I'm just trying to think because there has to be a little bit, I'm just trying to think. Or like two people that are very laid back. I mean, nothing's going to get done. No electricity, no water. I don't see how it's going to work. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think how. I can't think of a specific example, but.
Anybody want to jump in here?
I don't think I've ever done that. I don't think I've ever done it. Although I know some women, very, very headstrong, very strong women. And I can't see them with a man who's, like I call it like she'll eat him for breakfast type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, so in some ways, sometimes, a stronger personality really needs a stronger personality. It has to be a balance. I don't know.
Okay.
It's a tough one.
I have an example, actually an example of a young man who I set up multiple times. And what I was finally getting the impression is that he does have a little bit of an edge to him. And so I decided to call this other young lady who I thought could handle it, even though she is not at all that way. And I kind of explained it to her, and I said that he does have this, but I think that you would be okay with that. And she laughed and she said she actually was, and she thanked me for being so honest. And in the end, he said no, but.
I don't think I've ever tried to do that. I remember someone saying to me, asked me about a certain guy when I was single. And I said, I think there's something a little wrong with him. I think he's like a little strange. And she said, well, do you know a strange girl Tourette to him? I'm like, okay. But I haven't really tried to do that. I usually try to look at people and think about what's their qualities that, who do I know of that with them together is going to build something and create something. And that's what I tell singles also. You're not looking for someone who fits your list. You're looking for someone who you can create something bigger than both of you with. And who is that? And, people who ask me, let's say, for even dating advice or what they should look for, So I generally try to guide them along those lines. Beyond, what you think you need, what is it that you need to, what will the person have that together with your qualities, you can build something and create something bigger than both of you?
What do you see as the reason for the shidduch crisis?
I see a few things. First of all, I feel that one of the big problems is, and this goes back to the first two questions that you had asked earlier, I really, really feel that people are not open-minded. I think people put themselves into a small box. They're looking for that fish that they want to marry, but they're looking in a little fish tank. They're not even looking in a lake, and certainly not in the ocean. So many times I've had people turn down a boy. Actually, a boy turned down a girl because she was not blonde. After that, I basically did not deal with him because I wasn't going to limit myself to only finding him a blonde girl. It ended up he met a person on his own, not planning on a date, but after he got to know her through other venues, he ended up marrying very dark complexion, very black hair, and they loved each other. It was amazing. We were teasing him about it, and he was like, well, I didn't realize. You know what? That's what happens very often. I also think that a lot of times we keep ourselves in that small box of what we're looking for, or we feel that we are so perfect that we need only perfect. I always remind people, just remember, none of us are perfect. I mean, I know I am, but other than myself, no one is perfect. And we have to really pick and choose what can we live with. And many people are not willing to give up on anything.
I'd like to comment on that question as well. I personally think this shidduch crisis, as it's termed today, is being literally caused by the singles themselves. They're the ones that are causing the crisis.
Can't stop there.
I know she keeps.
That's number one. Number two,
That's a good point.
I really feel that I'm sorry. Thank you.
Rose,
the other one is
We missed.
We missed the first point.
Oh, so again, I really feel that the crisis is being done by the singles. The crisis is not being done by anyone else. It's the singles that are causing the crisis themselves. That's number one.
How is that?
Number two.
How is that? Just explain the first one. How is it that you see that they're causing it?
I think because they themselves, like Chaya mentioned, I think that themselves they're acting like, I really want to say this, they're acting like the Goyim. They're acting like the Umas Ha'olam. This is why Goyim date very differently. And we're starting to, the singles, even the very frum ones, are starting to emulate the single ones. I'll tell you a very incredible story, short one. I met with a guy, black hat guy, yeshivish to the max. He came in, I interviewed him before coronavirus. I met him in the living room, and he was very picky about looks. So I basically said to him, when you marry a girl, she might look a certain way, but after children, as she ages, they start to look different. It lasts. So this is how Goyim perceive marriages. This is not how a frum yeshivish guy should be looking at. Number two, I think that the social media, the Facebook and all this stuff has had a very negative influence on our Jewish singles. Again, maybe not so the frum ones, because they typically don't have social media accounts, or at least typically don't. But even when you send them a picture, even when you think it's a good suggestion, many of them, especially the modern, automatically, many of them will go to the Facebook page. And I always tell people, if you have a Facebook page, which I'm against it, please update it, especially the Baal Tshuvas. They may have changed. So I've had girls that go, I see him with a girl next to it. Number one, that girl could be a sister, or this could be, someone else that you don't know. So don't judge by what you see. Number two, the person could have changed. So I really believe that social media has been very negative in the respect of trying to find their beshert.
Hey, can I just say something to that?
Good.
So first of all, I don't blame singles so much, at least not as much as you. I think that as far as, let's say, even the picture situation and Facebook and seeing other things, I think that a lot of it was probably caused by Simplispot, where the people are looking at pictures of people that are engaged. And of course, when somebody's engaged and they're so happy and their happiness is coming out of their faces and they look so beautiful, and probably that picture is way nicer than any of their shidduch pictures that they ever had. So now that becomes like what they're judging by, like those were the first pictures that they were seeing. So now they're thinking that the girl has to look like that, which is not realistic. And another thing that I think is also causing it is that I think that shadchanim very often are making it happen because they're giving into a lot of these things. And I think it's the shadchanim's fault that the pictures are being out there, not the singles' fault. I don't think that the singles one day woke up and said, oh, we need pictures. I think shadchanim were providing the pictures and it became like a normal thing to have. I think also when guys are 30 years old and they want to go out with 22-year-olds, shadchanim are offering those suggestions, and that's why it's happening. Or when a guy has some other major issue, and then, and then they're trying to like give him pictures of girls or suggesting girls that are like really accomplished and beautiful and have everything going for them, and the guy is really not up to that, and she's probably going to say no to him anyhow. But he now thinks, oh, this is a possibility. So that's just what. I'm still trying to protect the singles, and I'm still behind them. I think we have to make it work, but.
Mrs. Khan looks like she has something to say. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I 100% agree with everything Ori said. You asked a question earlier about who won't I work with? I won't work with men who want someone 15 or 20 years younger than. If they're 30 and they want a 15-year-old, if they're 45 and they want a 20-year-old, whatever, 30-year-old, I just don't work with them, period. And I'm nice, but I say I don't think it's realistic. I don't think that a girl that age wants you. Well, I know someone. I said, fine, so go find someone who will help you. And I just, and I think that shadchanim should stand firm and just have certain boundaries and think about it. Like, what are these two people offering to each other? I'm not sure if there's really a shidduch crisis. I think that there's not enough people helping make shidduchim. I call it a shadchan crisis. Lots of people like to do lots of things. Not everyone has seichel, personal skills to work with people, to understand human beings. But I think a lot of people could set up more or could throw ideas to people who are in the trenches. And I don't think enough people do. And I don't really blame this on shidduchim, the crisis, maybe more on a divorce problem, is people's lack of self-awareness. Not recognizing who they are, what they bring to the table, and what's a good match for themselves. Some people eventually get to that point. But again, when matchmakers are constantly setting up the guy who, is the cashier at the local kosher store with a girl with a PhD, okay, sometimes it works. But I don't think we should feed into these fantasies. The guy who's 200 pounds overweight with someone who's very svelte. It's not nice to either person. It's insulting to the girl. It's unrealistic for him. And we should, sometimes maybe I'm not nice like I try to be kind, but I am also realistic, and I don't really perpetuate people's fantasies. And so that's just, I definitely think there's a lot of singles, but I think for the course of the day, I could sit literally at my computer, be on the phone from 8:00 in the morning until midnight. And I'm just one person, and I get very overwhelmed and very tired and very drained. And I think if more people were helping a little bit, it would not be quite as bad.
Mrs. Biederman, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Two comments as far as the shidduch crisis. My husband and I have very often talked about it. For starters, God does not make mistakes. So if you're not married, there's a reason. You may not realize it. Number two, they also say that the shidduch crisis is way worse for the girls. But as far as I've heard, at least in our circles, for every single guy that gets engaged, there's at least one girl getting engaged. So there's no shidduch crisis. If you're open-minded, you will find. My kids found, I found, we were open-minded. We didn't necessarily get exactly what everyone thought for sure we would be getting or we should be getting. And you have to sometimes compromise and work with real life.
You know, I wanted to comment on Oorah when you said about the simcha spot. A boy actually said, "Why do they look so pretty after they're engaged?"
See?
You know? But I think that part of the shidduch crisis is also that the boys are holding here and the girls are holding here religiously, and no one wants to compromise.
Right. So I also had one more thing to say that by the last Shabbaton in the zone, Rachel Burnham, this question came up to Rachel Burnham and about boys wanting to date girls that were not really, or even the other way also, the girls, wanting something that didn't make sense for them. And she said to me, she said at the thing, she says, you know what, just read what they want and then they'll just get the no's and too bad on them. And eventually they'll learn. So There is, I guess, that way of looking at it. But I kind of feel like it's a waste of time for us. And it is, of course, easier if you know yourself and you know what makes sense for you. But she had this other side. She says, if it's not working, then just read it and they'll get the no and goodbye,
Well,
I can say one more thing
through that.
What? When Ms.
I
Khan
wouldn't
said
want to put a girl through that. Having to go out with someone that's
no, she won't give the yes. She's not giving a yes.
She's going to say no.
Okay.
But Ms. Khan,
You're right.
Ms. Khan said something about giving a heavy guy a thin girl. I'm always embarrassed to give someone else heavy, because I don't want to insult them.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying it's only, listen, it's not physical, but I'm saying like it there's many factors. I think about it in my head. Are they good for each other? Both of them. Not just is she good for him or is he good for her, but are they, in my head, the way I line things up, do they seem like they're good for each other? Does it feel even like this, they're not exactly bringing all the same things to the shidduch, but they even out the way I look at things. And, but there's a boy I know, we all have probably worked with him, and he's a lovely young man. And I've been speaking to him probably the last almost 2 years about why is it the girls he wants to date or gets a date with eventually always say no to him. And he's had a very hard time with it. And he's very sweet. He's smart. He's educated, good looking, great family. Obviously, there's some sort of disconnect because the girls who are happy with him, he doesn't want, and the ones he wants don't want him. But he is actually finally at age 28 working on it. And I think that some people, it takes them a long time, unfortunately, and a lot of loneliness and a lot of pain to recognize that for whatever reason, they weren't, either they're doing something wrong on a date, they're so nervous that they're so happy to meet somebody that they act silly and the person's not interested. I don't really know, but.
Well, that's very I actually have a guy who I work with who's 29, and he told me last week, he said, Mrs. Kalap, I want to admit to you that for the past bunch of years, I really wasn't dating properly. And I think I was just waiting for that perfect girl to come along, and then maybe I'll just get engaged to her. Like I wasn't really working on it, but now I just saw it. But now for the past few months, I've really been working on it, and I don't even ask for pictures. I just want to hear what the girl is about, and I want to make it work. And
well, good for him. Yay. Good for him.
He's trying to be realistic.
Right.
Good for him. He should get married soon.
Part of that is what I stated, which is that people just have very unrealistic expectations, and always and really not understanding what you're looking for in a marriage. I have talked to girls in their 20s, and we have a lot of this in the West Coast. I don't know if this is the same in the East Coast, but a lot of these girls are very particular. He must have the same education and college degree as I have. He must come from the same family side of town as I have. He must agree to live here. They have like all of these things that this person must be and must have. And they never ask, like they don't discuss the things that make a great husband. Someone patient, someone generous. I don't know. They're not looking for qualities. And I've married off, 3 children, and going to be marrying off my 4th one soon. It never occurred to me to ask for these other things. And I just feel there's a real lack of understanding of what you're looking for and what marriage is.
I mean, to a certain degree, the fact that we have exposures to the whole world sometimes makes singles feel like, there's another person out there somewhere else, and it doesn't end. And unfortunately, it does sometimes end. And people always looking for the next opportunity, I think, becomes very problematic. And people really have to learn to focus on the particular individual that's in front of them, and make sure they don't lose opportunities.